culture really has to step up. I've sat in interviews, and as a recruiter, it's quite sad sometimes to see that somebody has the right purpose. He has everything potentially going for them, but they simply can't express themselves as men.
Hello, good people. This is the Simply Elegant Show. It's your host, Lady Suzanne. In this space, we talk about all things elegance, sophistication, class, and poise. And today, I am so excited. We can never talk about elegance without talking about my husband, who's raised me up, who has helped me become an elegant woman, brought out the best version of who I am, and he has helped polish me, my manners, the way I talk, the way I behave, the way I dress, everything. He's my mirror. I ask him when going out, how do I look? And I just love him so much because he's really worked on this girl. And what you can see today, he's the man behind the scenes, the wind beneath my wings. And without further ado, I'll ask him to just introduce himself.
Hello, and thanks for having me on this wonderful show. This is the first time on this stage, and I'm feeling so excited. I've just come from the United States. I'm still a bit jet lagged, but I'm never too jet lagged for you, my love. And thanks for having me, Miss Elegance. You're definitely the definition of elegance. And as your hubby, I'm so proud of you, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. It's such an honor and a blessing, and I'm grateful for really hosting me. And let's do this.
Okay. So, sweetheart, who is an elegant woman to you?
Well, if anybody asked me that question, it would be my wife.
Okay.
That is the automatic answer.
Okay, in
Because
general.
she is definitely the definition of elegance.
Okay.
But in my opinion, there's a few things that define elegance, especially in a woman. And a lot of them I see in you. The first one being, beauty with brains. And, the definition of beauty, as you know, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder.
Okay.
And, when you have the looks and, you compliment yourself and have the confidence in yourself. And it's the inner confidence that brings out the beauty externally. And that's what a lot of people really don't understand. So beauty is not necessarily in the physical appearance. It's what you have inside you that is actually manifesting outside of your body. And that radiates around you. And people are able to feel it, and they're able to see it. So once they start seeing it and feeling it, now it's up to the woman to complement that external look. So the first thing she needs to do is to be aware, self-aware about what her body is, how she looks, what complements that external outlook, and what she's actually manifesting, and put herself together. Because if you don't put yourself together, you definitely are not bringing out the positive vibes and the positive energy that ideally should be radiating. And so you need to put yourself together, make sure that you look good, make sure that the look actually complements who you are, both physically, mentally, and of course, within the spirit. So that's really important. I think the second thing is confidence. Confidence is everything, and nobody can teach you confidence. Of course, we are all influenced by how we're brought up, situations that we go through either in school or at home. But ultimately, when you become a woman, it's important to learn that, you're faced with a lot of hurdles out here. The world is always against, a woman. And they face much harder hurdles and barriers when it comes to, going through life, coming up. There's a way society portrays them. There's a lot of patriarchy, that women face, situations. And generally, it's still, in quotes, a man's world. So a lot of things are defined by men for men. And so being confident is understanding that context and being in a position to basically rise above a lot of the barriers and take advantage of the opportunities. And you can only do that when you're confident as a woman. And then lastly, I would say, beyond, the outlook and the confidence, it's basically the brains. And, when you look at the brains, it's basically, it builds on the two that I've talked about, and then projects into who you are currently, reflecting on who you were in the past, and thinking about the future, which means that you have emotional intelligence. You are able to decipher situations. You can be in a situation and critically and quickly think. You can process information. You can watch how you speak and when you speak and what you speak. But also, use that not to let anybody put you down or put you under. And so, how you shape the world around you is definitely an important product of emotional intelligence. And I think, an elegant woman basically uses all those faculties of thinking, processing, before they take any action, before they take any step, before they speak. And that creates an aura of respect around you. You know the red lines, you know the barriers, you know what to do, when to do, in what situations. And that's really important when you're defining elegance. And that means that you can actually take advantage of all these things and opportunities around you to define everybody else around you. So you may be single or you might be married, so how you process all these things and the emotional intelligence then allows you to know what you should be doing at the right time, at the right place, and what else you should be doing for the people around you. And for me, that's really important.
Okay, so that is who an elegant woman is to you.
Yes.
And you mentioned about beauty with brains. And of course, I have watched you climb the corporate ladder, and maybe you can tell a woman outside there what does it take, or what is the process of climbing up that ladder?
Well, like I said earlier, the corporate ladder, or any ladder in life, especially when you're looking at progress for a woman, is 10 times, 20 times much harder. Because there's lots of barriers that are placed in the path of women. I think the first thing is, beyond the emotional intelligence, is having the right information and having the right skills. And you can only do that by going to school or, engaging in a particular activity that develops, people often think that, you only have to go to school or to college. But we know that there are people who actually haven't gone through school, but they have very, very critical skills that nobody else can actually, deliver. And so, whichever path it takes you, it's important to add skills and knowledge, because those two then lead you into a particular area or line of work which can help you to grow. But for you to grow, then you need to develop skills to become an expert. So you move up the next level, which is to become an expert. And to become a domain expert means that you understand the area so well, you do it better than everybody else. But more importantly, you push harder than everybody else, which means that you're breaking the glass ceiling. You're doing a lot more than everybody around you. So if you're surrounded by friends, who really encourage you to just be the same, to be at the same level as them. Let's do the bare minimum. We'll get paid. We are okay. We laugh together. We smile together. Then you're not likely to go any step higher. But if you stand out in a world that is defined largely by men, and a society that looks at women as being lesser, slightly lesser, they're paid less. Globally, we've seen this, that women are paid less, be it in sports, be it in the corporate world, because of those historical cultural practices and perceptions. But you can see that there's been lots of movements over the last so many years that are encouraging women and pushing really hard for parity. And parity is not necessarily equality. It's just laying, having a level playing field and offering similar opportunities, same opportunities for both men and women, to advance in whatever field they want to advance. And so becoming an expert then allows you to demonstrate in practice that you're diligent. When you're diligent and you're consistently so, then you become recognized. Once you become recognized, it will still be difficult because the people you are at the same level with will try to pull you under. But the people who are above you will try to pull you up. And so it's a fine trading line when you get to a certain point that, people will be jealous, others will not really appreciate you. But, going through all those difficulties means that you have to be resilient. And so you become an expert, you become a domain expert, you stand out, but then it's the consistency that then can help you to become more resilient to overcome some of the barriers that will be enacted in your path. And once you get to that level, it's also demonstrating, you cannot be diligent and an expert and then sit in a corner quiet. So you have to find opportunities to really sell your brand. And all these things help you to build your brand as a woman. And as you build your brand, people really sometimes don't understand that there are two things. There's you as an individual, and then there's you as a brand. The brand is what you put out there. You are known for something. Your name is known for something. So you are Miss Demure, you're Miss Elegant, it's because that is the brand that you're putting out there. And then there's you as a person who's separate. So as you build your brand, invest in the brand, be consistent and diligent in the brand. People recognize the brand, then they recognize you as an individual because the brand is what puts out there the things that are really important. So growing, in any corporate environment or development environment, whichever domain you are in, means that you have to go through those steps and clearly understand that far and above everything else, that there's a God who watches over us. You can have everything, but still, the devil is up to no task and he's constantly willing to pull the best, under. And so recognizing that God, being committed spiritually and committing to God and trusting in the journey that God provides, I think is really, really important because you will see miracles, you will see opportunities, and your eyes will be open to things that nobody else can open. And of course, God will see you through, which is the most important aspect of all this.
Okay. So, sweetheart, what is that you see in a woman and you're like, ouch, that is no. When it comes to fashion or the way a woman is behaving, or just when a woman walks into a room and you see and you're like, no, from the eyes of a man, of an elegant man like you are.
That's a very tricky question, and I'm wondering if you're using that. It's a trick question to find out some information or not. But I'll try my best to respond to it. So the thing is, really,
no judgment. We are helping the woman level up.
Yeah, any information
in this set will not be used
against
you.
Against me.
Okay.
And so,
agreed.
And I would say, it's the first thing is the energy. Like I said, what is inside you is what actually you radiate. You might be the smartest dressed person, but for people like me who trust their instinct and read body language and energy, that first, you may not have said a word, but as you walk in, the energy around you, the aura around you, really defines what that first impression will be for a lot of people. Now, some may not even know they are, in the subconscious analyzing you, but you'll just walk in a room and you're a complete put off, and you're looking smart. You put yourself together, everything, but people just feel like there's something here, and so that inner energy and being able to project it really is really important. And so that can put a lot of people off, or it can actually attract people towards you. And that reads into personality. So people read personalities. When you stand up, if you're confident, if you're nervous, of course, people will realize you're nervous. And there's nothing wrong. There are situations where people can be nervous. It's an energy. It's how you overcome that energy that is really, really important. And so it's possible that you may be scared. You may be walking into a room, you're scared. That's the energy you're portraying. But how quickly you settle I think is really important.
And when it comes to fashion,
so that's the first aspect.
yes, that's energy. You need to have like positive energy
Yeah.
around you.
And the vibes.
And vibes.
People want positive vibes.
Okay.
And
Positive energy,
yeah,
you know.
You're not
What is like
you're
your
not
presence?
looking like you're mad.
What's
you're
the
not
presence?
looking like you're mad at people. You're mad at the world. You're mad at everybody.
Mad at everyone.
And people haven't done anything to you.
Okay.
You know. And so wherever you go through life, it's important to manage your own emotions, and and find a way to sometimes suppress so that you don't put people off.
Okay.
So that's one aspect. I think the second one also is it's how you put yourself together. Like I said, how do you dress? Yeah, does your makeup even complement you if you need the makeup at all?
How do you walk?
How are you walking? Are you gully creeping? You've
seen people wearing high heels.
High heels, and
they're almost like they're walking like Donald Duck.
This person
They almost
may trip. So as people watch you walk, their heads are shaking because they feel like they should come and hold you, because the next minute you might be on the floor.
Yes. Okay.
And so
forcing issues like walking with high heels, and you're not good in that.
Put yourself together. Be confident, but know yourself and be yourself. And everything you do in terms of dressing up has to be complementary. People dress for the occasion. Be ready. Understand where you're going and what you're going to do. You might be smartly dressed, but for the wrong occasion. And we've seen this many times. And people sometimes don't process that. It can be a put off, if you're going to a certain meetings. It's a corporate meeting, but you're walking in there like you're going for a wedding out, or you're going for a wedding. You're well put together, with heart and everything, but you certainly look at a place and people are like, okay, what are we going to discuss here? Is it preparations for a wedding or an event, or is it a business deal? And so I think it's really important to put yourself together in a way that complements and also responds to the external environment in terms of understanding what you're going to do, where actually you're going, and for what purpose. And I think fit for purpose is the key word here. Be fit for purpose, and prepare yourself accordingly.
Okay. So fit for purpose, the energy, and like you should put yourself together. That's what you're telling the woman.
Exactly.
So they're not those things that you see and they're like off. In a woman.
I think the other one is the moment you open your mouth, and I don't want to forget that.
Okay.
You're well put together, you're walking in, the energy seems right, the vibe seems right.
The dress is good.
The dress
is
high
good. Heels
everything
is
excellent.
Okay.
Then you open your mouth. And when you open your mouth and you say something, and people look at you and they look at each other.
Wrong pronunciations.
So pronunciation, I mean...
vocabulary.
I think language...
Speaking mother tongue through English.
Yeah, direct translations in certain circumstances. And, of course, we never went through the same journey.
Of course.
But there has to be an attempt at overcoming certain barriers, especially when it comes to language and communication.
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong with an LR here and there.
Al-Airo.
That can be thrown
the
in
accent,
one,
especially from Mount Kenya, Al-Airo.
Yeah, and
Chile.
Where I come from, in
you don't have that problem.
Western Kenya, we also have our own issues.
Okay.
But you have to find a way to effectively try to manage and communicate in a way that does not necessarily portray you just came from the village yesterday. So that's something that I think is one aspect.
But you just landed through Easy Coach.
You've just landed. You've just come from the village into the meeting.
Okay.
So I think that's one aspect. I think the second one is being respectful of other people. So whatever you open your mouth to say has to be respectful of the audience. It has to be respectful of the people around you, so that you don't end up saying things that are quite offensive. If, it's a
So, sweetheart, you are saying a woman can look so good, but the moment she opens her mouth, everything washed down.
Yeah,
down the drain.
You're walking into a room and the first thing you're talking about Murima and everything else that's going on. And people in the room are basically...
politics.
People are basically not interested in politics. So reading the room is really important, and that speaks to emotional intelligence, which is basically listen first, understand the people you're dealing with, understand the room in which you are, and then by the time you're opening your mouth, then you've processed information and can make meaningful contribution to conversations, and not be completely off talking about things.
And that is so profound, because even the Bible says that a foolish person is deemed wise when quiet. So if you have nothing to say as an elegant woman, then you can just stay silent. You don't have to talk.
You don't have to talk. You don't have to be everywhere.
You don't have to do it, because you will be talking about rubbish and nothing.
If you don't know,
nothing.
Genuinely, respectfully ask those who know, because there might be experts in a room. You're going into a room, you're going to learn something new. Sit and listen, and ask the right questions. And if somebody asks you something and you genuinely don't know, don't pretend that you know it, because ultimately
you
that's how
look
you
so
end up
bad.
looking
You will
foolish.
look so and you look so foolish and out of place.
Yeah. So if you don't know, basically say, I really don't know. But it's a,
and of course there's a nice way of saying you don't know.
It's an area of
interest. You can say that maybe you're putting some research into it.
No, it's an area of interest. I would love to learn some more. Actually, now that you're asking me that question, are you aware about things in that area? Could you explain a bit more? Have you heard about this? Don't jump to say yes if you've never heard about it.
And looking like they know it all, who knows nothing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's really important to read the room and understand before you speak.
Okay. Sweetheart, I understand that you're in the corporate world. So obviously your statements are more about the corporate, and which is good. I was expecting you to say things like a put off, like a bad wig, bad makeup, panty lines, and skimpy dressing. And you talked about high heels, like dirty shoes, things like that. But you are so corporate, and I really like that, because for you, you are corporate, and that is...
I think I alluded to it. It's about putting yourself together and dressing for the right occasion. Don't dress like you're going to, a party with your friends, and you're coming into a meeting. I think all those things is about how you actually put yourself together.
So that's a corporate woman.
Make sure the wig is holding right. It doesn't
and it's
fall
not
off.
falling.
It doesn't fall off.
Doesn't fall off.
Yeah.
And the makeup doesn't look like you're going for a disco.
Yeah. And make sure your hair has been taken care of.
And the shoes.
You're not in a meeting and you're slapping, and people are wondering,
ouch.
Is she killing mosquitoes on her head, or what is actually happening? So make sure you take yourself, be comfortable,
be clean and
be clean, be comfortable. And that's going to give you a lot of the confidence, and people will notice.
And how should our corporate women smell?
Of course, you have to smell good or neutral. It depends. Don't walk into a room with a very strong perfume if you really don't understand the audience. But, there may be settings where you're going for a cocktail. It's a cocktail. You've been invited to a corporate cocktail meeting. That's in the evening. It's after a long day of business. Freshening up and looking good and smelling good, there's no harm. But you might find that you're going for board meetings in fairly small spaces. Don't overspray.
So they'll be to one-on-one.
It's basically, try and be mindful of, if you walk in and everybody can smell the perfume following you and overtaking you, then there's a bit of a problem. So
and smelling sweat.
Everything in moderation, Smelling sweat, of course, is the complete opposite of that. So it's a no-no. It's a no-no, absolutely.
You cannot go into meetings with all the sweat and the onion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you're straight from the kitchen.
And the garlic.
Yes. But you said a woman should have balance, like you should cook and also succeed in the career. Tell us more about balance when it comes to a woman.
I think it's setting priorities. And like I said, having red lines. Because, one thing I've learned over the years is that work never ends. There'll always be more to do. If the organization is successful and it's actually growing, there's constant demands on your time. But you have to balance that and find ways to actually draw the line and say, look, past this time, I really can't do it. And I can come in earlier in the morning because I need to go take care of other business. And so it's, having those priorities, recognizing the red lines and understanding what the balance is, which means that you have to organize how your day is going to run. And if you're not able to accomplish things, how are you going to recover the time? Will you come in earlier than usual the following day, but make sure that at least you take care of business at home? And so it's a very delicate balance. It's increasingly much more difficult, especially for professional women, because the demands on their time are becoming harder and harder. They have to compete in the business environment, and they have to give a lot more. And so, how you organize yourself, have people who can help you. And so you establish a routine, set up the structures, make sure you have people who you've trained, who can then support you and make your life a lot easier. I think the days are gone when a woman is coming from work at 9 p.m. and is expected to go into the kitchen to cook. Surely, it just doesn't make sense. And so, if you have people who can help you, set up those structures, make sure everything is taken care of, even as you come in, things are settled. And so, it's actually doable, especially in our context. And so, it's more of how you organize yourself, how you set, the standards, so that the people you're training can actually deliver your standard. And of course, giving back. So now that you are not able to cook Monday to Friday,
you can maybe cook on Saturday.
I would appreciate
or on Sunday.
A really beautiful, wonderful meal,
Okay.
From you on Saturday and on Sunday, at least to compensate for the time you're not able to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, sweetheart, for a long time it has been said that women sleep their way up the ladder, but I believe that there are women who really work hard outside there. So what's your take on that?
I think it's an unfortunate situation. And like I said, there are many barriers that are placed in the path of women that hinders their growth. And this has been, it's a global subject matter. And there are many corporate women, especially at the top. I don't have any books top of my mind, but go and research who talk about this subject and how they actually overcame some of these barriers. It's extremely difficult, and it's a factor of two things. Number one, the barriers that have been enacted in the path of a woman by people who are not thinking right, in terms of, why would you want to sleep with a woman so that you can give her favor when she's professional, when she's good at what she does? Why can't you give her the opportunity to still deliver the work for you? So I think that's one big problem that we often see. I think the second aspect that comes into play is the desperation. People playing on the desperation of, which is extremely unfortunate. They play on the desperation of women. You really need this job, you really need that promotion, and you're desperate for it. And when somebody really enacts this barrier for you to overcome, as difficult as it is, there are many women who unfortunately find themselves in that position. And I think, there are ways that organizations or companies deal with the issue as part of their HR policies. But I think even despite having HR policies and all this, you have people in power, men in power, who still abuse it. And it puts women in very awkward situations. But if you have your own principles, you've set your own standards, you understand your value, you understand your worth, then you don't necessarily have to be forced to do things. And it may not just be sexual favors. You might be forced to do other things that, are not in line with what you've defined as your own principles. If you're being asked to steal from the organization by somebody in high authorities, what do you do? And, they threaten that they'll fire you if you don't do it. So sexual favors is one of the things, but there are many other barriers that, women in particular go through. And so we need to look at them in totality. But I think the sexual favor one, it's an infringement of personal rights, and it's also illegal. And so that's not something that should be tolerated, especially by the woman, and when there are especially other options that they can pursue.
Of course. Thank you so much, sweetheart. And now you have spoken about the woman being at a place whereby she needs to have sex and sleep her way up the ladder. But now there's, on the flip side, there's the women who push themselves to the men in the corporate world, especially to their bosses, and they dress skimpily. They try to seduce the boss so that they can get those favors. What's your take on that?
I think it's just outright prostitution in the workplace. That's how I'd simply define it. And so, like I said, how you put yourself together and the standards you set for yourself is basically how, and the vibes and the energy that you set out is what people
So
will
there's
feed
that
on.
challenge in the
People,
corporate
of
world.
course,
The ladies throwing themselves to the men.
and it's widespread. You know, it happens in every sector, and so you'll find, you know, even as we talk about men, of course, all these things that I'm talking about also apply to women. You know, there are female bosses who actually prey on male employees. You know, there are female bosses who will enact barriers in the path of male employees. So all these things, you know, cut both ways. And so I do not want to be misinterpreted because we live in a world where things have changed rapidly and women are much more empowered.
And the hunter has become the hunted.
The hunter has become the hunted, and that is quite clear. We know that. And so it's incumbent upon the individual really to decipher the situation and exercise judgment. But still, it continues to happen, and it's even worse, you know, because especially for the boy child, as we are known, you know, the options for recourse, like going to tell your friends, going to report, are much more difficult, you know, and so people keep quiet.
It's not like for the women,
and they suffer in silence.
Okay.
And so, you know, just to clarify that, you know, these things are happening, and they happen to men too. And so it's important to constantly think about that. And collectively, we as a society have to think about the solutions for both men and women when we talk about these things. And I think for even as the ladies throw themselves to you, it's really entirely up to you as a person, because nobody's coercing or forcing you to do anything. You have the right to say no. You find smart ways to say no, you know, because you have continued to work with these people and define the red lines, which if they cross, then of course there could be some, HR guidelines or policies that can support that, you know, some form of action that then helps you to overcome the barrier. So it's not right. Especially in the workplace, it becomes a lot more complicated and difficult. And so if, you know, I'd encourage my fellow men to be strong and, of course,
Say
like
no.
I say, say no.
How can you say no to a snack that is readily available?
I mean, it's the same way
Free snacks.
You can be driving around. Do you go eating mutura? Do you go eating maize?
Egg?
Do you go eating my boiro in questionable places? Mutongo here, you know. As
my
you go
international vias, my boilo is boiled egg.
Yes.
Yes.
And so as you see all these snacks, you might be hungry.
Okay.
But you have to make choices.
Okay, this is a free snack, and it's your favorite snack.
Even if it's a free snack,
okay,
you don't go accepting snacks freely
from strangers.
It's the same principle.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you don't have to consume every snack that comes your way. Yeah, it's as simple as that.
Like mixing work with pleasure.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And if you really want to grow, in my experience, if you want to grow professionally, there has to be a way that you carry yourself as a man, you know,
and as a woman.
And as a woman.
Okay.
I'm talking about men, especially because of this issue. So, how you carry
because
yourself,
of the snacks issue.
Yes, because of the snacks issues. How you carry yourself and how you grow, you know, is based on professionalism. Is based on standards that you set for yourself, and your girlfriend, your wife, you know, people around you don't have to be there to monitor and track everything you're doing. But you need to know where you want to go, set the vision for yourself. It's a journey and it's a pathway towards that vision.
Okay.
The moment you start snacking everywhere,
free snacks,
it sucks a lot of energy.
Yeah, sure.
And you know, it distracts you
and moves you from the place of power.
And it completely derails your vision.
Okay.
And it actually, you know, you start the vibes around you, you know, become
and disrespect in your office place.
People look at you and wonder, how can this person then grow? How can they move to the next level? Can we entrust them with the next level of responsibility? just because of, you know, the snacking.
So have you
And
had
so
incidences in your, like in your office, in your corporate world, whereby women throw themselves at you?
of course, it happens. It has happened before, and it can
Like often?
it can no,
Okay.
not as often.
Okay.
You know, I'm always smiling at you. I'm always laughing with you. You know, when I'm out there, how I portray myself is very different. When I'm dressed up in my suit and
Outside there,
tie,
you are stone face.
I am stone-faced. In fact, I've had people say, like,
Do you ever smile?
you're snobbish, you know, because I'm portraying an image of professionalism. I came here to do my business. Once I'm done, I need to go out. So I'm not all over, you know, smiling and laughing and giggling, you know, with every snack, because it's about how you expose yourself and
True.
how you portray yourself.
Okay.
So how you portray yourself will determine whether people will come running to you, or, you know, they'll come around, but you have the ring fence around you that then protects you from that happening. And I've done it many times, and I'm happy to report that it
So
happened once.
have you had this aggressive girl who's been like on your case and she's like, I have to get you.
Fortunately,
Come rain, come shine.
fortunately not.
Okay.
I think, you know,
And then
it's
you're handsome.
that level of aggression is also, like I'm saying, subject to how you portray yourself.
How you respond.
If you respond and give the impression that
From the
you're
word go,
open
you're available.
to the ideas and
Okay.
you're available, then it's bound to happen. They'll keep coming. But
Okay.
if you set the boundaries, you know, then it's a lot easier to put a stop to it.
So if you find yourself in such a situation, what you do advise a young man outside there who is in the corporate world and they have this woman pushing themselves onto him?
Emotional intelligence. First of all, read them from a kilometer away. You can always tell from a kilometer away, this is potential trouble.
This is Delilah.
This is potential trouble.
Okay.
And so if you're not able to process that, then and quickly figure out how you're going to respond, then it's highly likely that you might be caught unawares. And so it's important to look, think, and you know, set the boundaries early enough. Otherwise, if you invite them into your space, then it becomes a lot more difficult. But I think the second thing is just living by principle. What are
Values.
What are the values and the principles that you set for yourself? What are the norms? What is your practice? You know, how do you go your day to day? You know, professionally and in your personal life. I think those, you know, nobody, and these things are not taught in school. So you have to teach yourself and really understand, you know, that you can learn from other people, but it's really important for you to set the standards for yourself, and be the man that you want to be if you really want to succeed, because that's the only way.
Okay. So, sweetheart, I've seen a lot of ladies, maybe in your emails, in your inbox, asking you to be their mentors. So how do you differentiate a genuine person who really want to grow in the corporate world, be like you, and that person who just want to push themselves at you?
Yeah, I think that there's two ways to look at it. The first one being, you know, to be a mentor, you have to be somewhere. You have to be successful already. You have to be an expert in your field and in your domain. And of course, there could be an opportunity really to mentor and train other people. You know, so the first thing is, are you available for that mentorship? You know, what kind of mentorship is it? Is it, you know, showing them how to go through a particular, you know, job or career, you know, career path? And the type of mentorship that I usually do, preferably, is to go to universities or to go to colleges or to go to schools. I'd rather do that where
Instead of one-on-one.
Yes,
Okay.
where you actually have an opportunity to impart the knowledge,
To many.
your experience, your journey to many, and of course
Instead of one.
Instead of one.
Okay.
And then there'll be those who will come to you after and ask questions, and you can respond to those questions. And I think the second thing is you can also make referrals, because you're not an expert in everything, and you can never be. And so it's important to point them in the right direction. I know, for example, you know, in in the development world, there are women who've been very successful. And as a man, I'd rather point a woman to a fellow woman who would be much more useful to her and who will point her in the right direction and explain to her the pathway, rather than me as a man pretending to be a woman in the sector and providing that information. So I think referrals in those kinds of situations are really important.
Okay. Wow, thank you so much, sweetheart. And you are big on capacity building. So how is that when it comes to women, maybe in your field? How have you managed to build capacity when it comes to them?
I think I mean, I've been in positions where I've run capacity building programs across countries. And now, as a global leader, I'm in charge of a portfolio that directly offers capacity building. And one of the things we noticed, especially when it comes to data science and other technical skills, there are fewer women in those areas. So, in my line of work now, we've put in deliberate measures to say that we are going to offer equal opportunities and encourage women to actually apply for more of those opportunities. So we are careful in terms of how we offer the opportunities in the first place, and of course have very comprehensive assessment criteria of how we bring people on board and offer these opportunities. And so, when it comes to women, we've done our bit in trying to promote that. It's never exactly the same, but we've seen more and more women getting involved in some of the capacity building programs, and I think that's really important. I mean, in terms of the capacity building itself, it could be either experiential training, where people go through a training program for an extended period of time, or it could be a fellowship program where they're embedded in a particular institution to learn skills, practical skills, which then allow them to advance as an expert in a particular field. Or we've had technical support where, capacity is basically hiring a consultant, a technical consultant, who can then provide, the kind of, skills or expertise that's needed to solve a very specific problem. And in the process also, work with other teams who can learn from them. And so capacity building takes many different forms. But I think, in the world where I work.
So you have managed to help women in that area?
Of course. Okay. Through these institutional frameworks and partnerships, we've definitely done quite a lot.
And how are women responding to that?
They're enthusiastic.
To capacity building.
They're enthusiastic, and they pay attention to detail. And I'm sorry to say to the boy child out there, given a level playing field, what we're seeing globally is that given a level playing field, is that women are competing better, delivering better, and much more efficient and proficient when it comes to delivery of tasks, jobs, skills, and expertise. And so the boy child now is faced with the challenge where they now they really need to work hard to level up and start getting to that level, because women are giving them a run for their money. And so that's something that we are really observing. And where I work, actually, there's a lot of women who've come up and they're doing quite well, competitively recruited, and it's
out of merit,
and it's a global recruitment process, and it's women we are seeing who are emerging, as the victors. And so it's interesting to see that change in the dynamic across the world. And so the boy child really has to step up. I've sat in interviews, and as a recruiter, it's quite sad sometimes to see that somebody has the right papers, he has everything potentially going for them, but they simply can't express themselves as men. And you wonder what went wrong. You look at application letters, for example.
Poorly done.
We see 99% of, or let's say 90%, because a lot of, the letters that we see now are quite mediocre, unfortunately. I don't know if there's just something wrong somewhere. But, when you have 90% of mediocre, application letters or resumes, you find that up to 80% of those are actually men, and 20% are women. So
the mediocre resumes belong to the men.
Yes. So they are paying less attention to detail. they're making a lot of assumptions,
Mistakes,
making a lot of mistakes,
spelling mistakes,
and not paying attention to detail, and that is a problem. And so when it comes to the first, the first level of recruitment, which is basically eradicating, a lot of
the
men
removal
are,
method,
yeah,
remove,
minus, eliminate,
subtraction.
Yeah, so a lot of men are now being swept away by that, and so you have women who are then having to come to the interview, and by that, then you find that in terms of numbers, those are increasing, and so I mean, we need to recalibrate, especially in our mentorship and upbringing of the boy child. Of course, there's been a lot of global efforts to bring women to be, to have the same opportunities. But I think in the process, of course, the boy child has been
Yeah,
promoted.
I wanted to ask you about gender equality when it comes to the corporate world.
No, and I think we have to invest more and start proactively thinking about how we recalibrate the resources that we're putting in terms of training of boys, girls, men, women.
So that we can have equality.
So that we can have some level of parity, which is a level playing field that offers opportunities for both, but does not disadvantage the boy child, which is what seems to be happening at the moment.
Okay. So empowering the boy child took so much. So the girl is going up and the boy is going under. Okay.
Yeah.
And as a father of boys, what's your take on that?
I mean, I have to push my boys a lot harder. That's something that I'm experiencing, because again, it's an attitude thing. For some reason, this upcoming generation, they make a lot of assumptions. They're a lot more laid back.
Okay.
They are more entitled. They want more money, but not necessarily to work for it. They want a big car, but they don't want to work for it. They want a big house, They want to have a beautiful wife like yourself, but they don't want to work for it.
They want to put in nothing.
And you, as a successful, beautiful woman, will not necessarily entertain that kind of a man. And so there's a big challenge when it comes to the confidence that the boy child has, and it's disadvantaging them. And so I'm finding that, as a father of boys, I have to push them a lot harder. I have to talk to them constantly. I have to, more importantly, demonstrate that my journey to where I am was not just a ride in the park. I just didn't wake up and now I'm driving this type of car. I didn't wake up and now I have a lovely, beautiful woman who's hosting me on her show. I just didn't wake up and all these things just dropped like manna from heaven. It doesn't work like that. And so there's a lot more that needs to be done to handhold and mentor men, young men especially, and push them a lot harder to recognize that they can get to where they want to be, but a lot of hard work is needed, a lot of consistency, passionate attention to detail, and they're competing with an empowered woman, and so they need to pay attention to the little things, and if they want to get there, then they have to do a lot more. And so, I have to spend more time with both the boys and the girls, but I have to spend more time with the boys, go out with them, take some time to explain to them. Sometimes take them to my meetings so they can see what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, because they assume it's easy, but it's not. It's not necessarily easy. And so beyond teaching, we have to demonstrate and do it in practice, and that's the only way that we can play our role in facilitating and enabling them. And of course, to a certain extent, set them up. I can't say that I expect my boys to go through the same journey that I went through. The context
and
was
all
different.
the suffering and
the technology was not there. We didn't have all these opportunities of emerging technologies, the Internet of Things, IoT,
AI.
ICTs, artificial intelligence, machine learning, a very interconnected world. I run the world from Nairobi here, and I do it effectively because technology is enabling that. And so I don't expect them to follow the exact same path, but to a certain extent, I have to make these opportunities available to them so they see that these are opportunities rather than me babysitting them. And so it's opening up their eyes to the opportunities and ensuring that they are clearly focused on seeing the opportunities and setting goals for themselves about where they want to be. And I can facilitate and enable that through courses here, paying for the education, if they want to do something extra, encouragement and
Okay.
mentorship. It's the best we can do, really, under the circumstances. So if they make a choice about being successful, I will have done my part. If they choose a totally different path, then at least I don't have to sit in my retirement and feel guilty, because I'll have done my part.
You did your best.
And that's the responsibility I have. I want to have peace when I retire, and not necessarily think that I didn't do enough.
You didn't do that. You wish you had done that.
Exactly.
So, sweetheart, you wear many hats. You are a global leader. You are a husband. You are a father. You are a mentor. You are everything that every woman would want. So, what's your take on the empowerment of a woman through her husband? Like you have done with me, you have worked so hard. And what people are seeing are the results of the hard work of this great man. Yeah.
I mean, it's first of all, it's a journey. Life is a journey, and of course, as you go through life, and you define the goals, like I said, and you define a vision for yourself about where you want to be. You work hard as a young man, push boundaries, and of course, as you get out there, you need support. You need a helper. If you believe in marriage, like some of us do, I grew up in a family setting, with my mom, my dad, my sisters, and so I've seen marriage work, and so and I've seen the interactions between my mom and dad, and so that context is very important, and it may not necessarily be the same for people who come from
broken
homes or single parent homes, but still, as an individual, you have to recognize that you came into this world alone, and so you have to define a path that helps you to mentally overcome some of those barriers, despite the difficult context, despite everything, broken homes, and that's happening quite a lot. And so, as you grow up and you get to a level where you feel now you want to settle down into marriage, it's a very conscious decision. You want to be self-aware about what you want to get out of this marriage, and as you look for the partner, then you want sort of a meeting of minds and a meeting of objectives, and of course, love is important. You want somebody that you love and who can be your best friend, and so all these attributes are really important. Somebody you can talk to, somebody you can communicate with, somebody you can plan together with, somebody you can work with, somebody who will be there for you. Nothing is perfect, These are two personalities coming together, and there'll always be a clash here and there because of those personalities, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's how you overcome and define it together that's really important. And so, understanding that, the woman in your life is not just there to support you, and is not just your helper, but you also need to support them and help them to be the best they possibly can be. Is a really
the best versions of themselves.
Is a really important factor, because recognizing that then means that you can invest in supporting them. You can put in time, you can put in effort, you can, and more importantly, you can put in money, which is what I sometimes do to make you look good. It's not necessarily, oh, I love you, sweetheart. Of course I love you.
With nothing.
But, you want to go to the salon.
The wig is expensive.
You want to, put on a bit of makeup, and I'm not offering anything. It becomes a bit difficult. But forget the looks. It's just about being supportive in whatever the vision she set for herself, because she has an ambition also. As a woman, you have an ambition. You have your own life goals, and so it's me understanding those life goals and the ambition, and recognizing that by you being successful and I being successful, that will be the ingredient for a really happy marriage. Now, sometimes what happens is that you might even get all this support from your man, or the support from your woman, but when you rise to the next level, then you forget where you came from. And so it's important to understand that with these investments, with the support, and it works both ways, that there has to be a return on investment, be it time, be it money, be it effort, be it support. The return on investment on both parties is really important. So as a man, even as I invest in you, and I want to see you become successful, I want to see the return on investment, which is number one, that you're successful. You can stand on your own. You have your money. You have your priorities. You are doing the best, the best thing that you've really set yourself up to do. And that, by doing that, I feel good because I want the best for you. I want to see you succeed, and I want you to be happy, more importantly. And then we can come together as you succeed and I succeed. We can then build an empire, which then is what will sustain us through this life, and of course, support our kids and everybody who depends on us out here. We are African. We have dependents, and so we constantly have to think about them and figure out how do we build this empire together that will support both ourselves, but everyone who's also around us. And so that's my view of why it's so important to offer the support and to invest, in a woman, especially in a marriage setting.
Yeah.
To support your wife and be there for her. And of course, she has to reciprocate, because it's not just one way, totally giving. And this is a mistake that a lot of women actually make. I have friends who complain that they put in so much but receive very little. And so recognizing that and appreciating a man for the effort that he's putting in and reciprocating in the little ways sometimes. It may not necessarily be big money, but reciprocating, I think, is really important, because it gives me the incentive, and it also encourages me to continue doing even more. And I think that's a really important point not to forget as a woman.
Okay. So, sweetheart, have you ever seen incidences where the man is growing and the woman is not?
Yeah, it can happen, either intentionally or
Okay.
sometimes unintentionally.
Okay.
Because, like I said, the paths could be very different.
So even you can't even hold a conversation because the woman is so down there and the man is so up there. So what's your take on what women should do to level up?
I think it's a meeting of minds, like I said.
Okay.
So if you meet somebody who's way below you, and you make a conscious decision that that's a person you want to be with, then you should be ready for their demands and whatever they need.
And to bring them up.
And you should be ready and be prepared to try and pull them up. That is, if that is your intention. But there are people who actually marry people who are way below them.
And they don't mind. They prefer them.
They prefer
down,
them to be there.
Yeah, down there.
And so that's a personal choice.
Okay.
And if somebody is making that personal choice, don't force them to try and do something that both parties are grown-ups. These are adults who make conscious decisions. So how people come together, where they meet, how they meet, and what they decide to do together as man and wife is entirely their business. And I'm not an expert when it comes to that. So I can't offer advice or judge people.
Okay.
Or judge people's marriages, because everybody's journey path is so different and it's so complex. You don't know where people met, under what circumstances.
Okay.
But
of course, it would be good for the woman to try and level up, find out what your husband does. Like the way you always encourage me, sweetheart, read this, check out this, so that even when we're having a conversation, we are at the same level.
And it may not necessarily be at the same level.
Okay.
You could be married to a doctor.
Okay.
When they start even giving you information,
it is,
you're completely lost.
The jargon is too much.
The jargon is too much. The terminology is so complex.
But at least you have some basics to keep a conversation
going. You can have some basic idea.
Yeah.
But I would say, it's a lot harder, especially for technical and,
maybe your husband is even an engineer.
Expert positions. And so it may be difficult.
Okay.
But I think it goes down to the basic things.
The bare minimum.
How are you doing? What did you work on today? How did it contribute to the organization?
How did it go?
Why is this so important?
Okay.
Like asking basic questions like those, like, why is that road important to an engineer? Then, you stimulate them to explain to you in technical ways.
Okay.
Yeah, we hope to open up the region, and these are the business opportunities that will come up. So when you're having that conversation, you can say, okay, if it's those business opportunities, I think, it will be good for the nation. And you can have a conversation at a level where it's not necessarily technical, but because you're genuinely curious, You have to be genuinely curious about what the man is doing and why it's so important. Because then when you ask that question, a man automatically opens up. There is nothing we love more than being asked what we do, why we're so successful at it, why this is so important, why it's so important for the village, why is it
The
so important for the
challenges.
county, why is it important for the country, why is it
Okay.
so important for the world, and sometimes it's just topics like football, why is this team, constantly losing, why is this one, like we love to talk about. It doesn't have to be necessarily professional, but it could be holding a conversation as a couple is I think important. And of course, just the little silly things sometimes, it's important to hold a conversation that is just silly between you and your wife. It doesn't have to be so complicated and so complex.
And so
Like
corporate.
I'm out on a date with you and I'm like, oh, talking about all these technical things, and you're just sitting there looking at me like, oh, what the hell is going on here, and so we could have fun. We could just have simple conversations, talk about things, talk about situations, talk about other things that matter in life that are not necessarily technical or professional. And that's how you sustain this conversation. So it's a balance between genuine curiosity in what I do, but also me coming to meet you where you are and finding out what is of interest to you and also talking to you about it.
So, sweetheart, you have told us a lot about a corporate, elegant woman. And of course, you have talked about the barriers that face women when trying to climb up the corporate ladder. Which other challenges do you think women face in the corporate world, apart from the sexual, of course, and everything? Yeah.
I think it's lack of opportunities sometimes. It's how organizations are set up. That's one thing. But we also have to balance that with there are certain jobs that women just can't do, and we just have to agree.
Due to the physical
they're so physical. They're so
like the masonry.
yeah, watu wanabeba simiti.
But
They're
nowadays,
like,
women are doing the masonry. They're in mijengo. They are doing
we see them,
construction work.
but it's not necessarily the heavy lifting.
Okay.
But they're making a positive contribution and they're on site.
Okay.
They're driving the trucks, they're delivering the materials, they're supporting in like putting the building
The
together
tractors.
and construction and all that. So they can do that. And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. But recognizing that certain jobs are they're just not for women. It's really important. But again, the lack of opportunity we see as a problem, and that could be a factor of human resource policies that the organization just tends to hire men, and that's just how they're set up. Others just recognize that the people who need to deliver on this job are just men, and we've seen that in some restaurants or some other places where they know what they need is just people who can physically do the stuff that they actually need, and it's business. Do your stuff and go. So I think that lack of opportunity is one of them. I think the second one is patriarchy, which is historical. The fact that women historically have been looked down upon, and as a result, there's just lack of belief, or sometimes the people who lead the organizations are not just don't have that psyche. They do not have that cultural mind shift to recognize that women can do an equally good job. I think the third one is lack of support. You have a female leader who simply doesn't hire fellow women, or you have a man who simply doesn't hire fellow men. So lack of support due to personal biases, I think, is also another factor that can play into this situation.
Okay. Yeah. So you have been in spaces whereby your work was to support women, to protect women, and I know that was very dear to you. So what's your take on like gender violence, things that work against women, maybe in the corporate world, now that we are talking everything corporate?
Yeah, I mean, it happens, but I don't have the figures and statistics to determine to what extent it's happening or currently happening. But gender-based violence in Kenya right now is a big deal, is a big issue. And
In the
globally,
confines of corporate.
even globally,
Okay.
it's still an issue.
Like a male boss slapping a female
That is rare. I would say it's rare.
employee. Okay.
Or it just doesn't come out,
Okay.
especially because of potential lawsuits. There are many people who fear, that they might be sued, and the company will be required to, compensate. And so in the work setting, I would say it's quite rare, although I don't have the figures and statistics to objectively give a proper response. But it's a no-no. Any form of gender-based violence is a red line. Corporate or not, it should not happen. And any man who raises their hand against a woman are definitely extremely weak. And they're projecting their weaknesses through the violence that they're then firing upon women. So it just doesn't make sense. It's illegal. It should not happen under whatever circumstances, because there are many ways to resolve issues, corporate or not. And so for me, it's just a red line, and that should be a complete red line for anybody, whether corporate or not.
Okay.
It should never happen.
Nice. So thank you so much, sweetheart, even for gracing this show. And we can never wind up this show without you giving us the take home for that woman who wants to climb the corporate ladder. What is the take home? As in, if we forget everything, this is what a woman who wants to rise in the corporate world should not forget.
So number one, be yourself. Be confident in your skills. Be an expert in your domain. Be confident. Be a go-getter. You might have everything else. If you're not a go-getter, then opportunities will pass you by. And then, seize opportunities as and when they become available. Be a cut above the rest. Be diligent. Be proficient. Be everything else and stand out from the crowd. That's really important. More importantly, let God lead your way, because He, all the time will open doors that sometimes are deemed impossible, and we've seen that happen. And He will guide your path if you believe in Him. These opportunities will open up, and you'll grow. And it's a combination of luck, blessings, and of course being persistent as an individual and consistent in your journey, setting the principles and setting the vision of where you want to be, and just going for it.
So you can be an elegant woman in the corporate world.
It's possible.
Look
and
good.
And there are many.
Of course.
There are many.
And they're doing it.
And they're doing it.
Wow.
So why not you out there?
Okay. So, woman, that is not all. We will be inviting him again to tell us how to climb the corporate ladder and how to make it in the corporate world. And sweetheart, I just want to thank you so much for even helping me grow. I have to commend you for the good job that you have done behind this woman. And I know that with your help, I'm going also not become like you, but maybe be somewhere near where you are. And so, dear viewers, that is how to become an elegant woman in the corporate world. And until next time, it is bye for now.